Under pressure, their pride becomes sin. Their sin becomes their anger becomes violence. Their resentments become hate. From their pride, winter blows and demons howl. Welcome to the first session of Dogs in a Wicked Age. One of planned at 2 at the moment. We've just done an hour of character creation and going through the setting, and we have some amazing characters. We're going to begin not by talking about our characters in a vacuum, but we're going to begin as your characters ride into Willow Bluff. We're going to first paint your characters, then together we'll paint the scene of the town. So let's start with that character. So as you approach Willow Bluff, I think you've been on the road for like a couple of days now. This would be a fairly isolated branch. You've got everything you'd normally have with you and a large bag of mail and maybe some supplies to the town, maybe some personal packages from those at Bridal Falls. Let's start right in the middle. Brother Lemuel, David, can you describe to us how we see you as you approach this town?
Yeah, so I'm on a horse. I'm wearing my coat, which as I said, came from my father. I think it's of like really well worked buffalo hide, so it's almost like it's like a leather, but it's buffalo rather than cow. I think it's maybe has a little bit of adornment, nothing that's too, is nothing that's really ostentatious. It's very appropriate for a dog and for a coat that's been used by multiple dogs over a couple of generations. Maybe like some, little, buttons or, grommets, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but, things that are kind of bolted on, around the collar or around the waist. I have a gun. I have my book, is on my saddle, or, behind my saddle and kind of lashed in its waterproof wrapping. I'm slender, not skinny, but like relatively, muscular and slender, I guess is the right way to put it. And what's the weather like? Is it cold? Is it spring?
I think it's yeah. Let's talk about it being cold.
Okay. Yeah. So then I definitely have a hat on. I get leather. It probably has some things that hang down to protect my ears, and maybe something wrapped around my lower face to keep me warm.
Awesome. I know nothing about like this sort of South Utah thing. Does it like light dust of snow or anything in that part of America?
Oh, certainly at the higher elevations. Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right. I dig that image so much that Willow Bluff, right? It's on like this you're riding uphill onto this like plateau of some of the mountaintops, and just as you're coming up, there's like that first light dusting of snow. Ryan, can you introduce us to Sister Zipporah?
Riding with Sister Lemuel is Sister Zipporah. She's, first glance, is probably that she's a hard woman, very like her gun in a lot of respects, which is a large shotgun strapped over her coat, which is, by all means, a fairly unremarkable coat, given that it wasn't her own community that made it for her. It was whichever one she was nearest when dogs started out. I'm not totally clear on all that. But she has kind of unremarkable blondie brown hair, where it's that kind of in-between color, braided and then tied up under some sort of hat because it is snowing. And also has her book strapped to her, in a waterproof coating strapped to her quite excellent horse. Book is not in nearly as good shape as Lemuel's, though. It's clear. If you were to open it up, it'd be clearly a hand-me-down.
That's so beautiful. Tyler, finish us off here.
Abel is small, is the kindest thing. Diminutive might be more accurate. He's only about 5'3" and very thin. He has his coat comes from his long line of family who have been dogs, and it is nicely made and sturdy, a really nice coat, but it is so big for him that it just sort of wraps all the way around him. At his side is an enormous pistol. It is one of the early revolvers, a 4-shot. And it is so large that it can bang against his knee when he's walking in comparison to him. He has with him his horse, who he constantly seems to be talking, probably to a point that y'all are sick of hearing him. And he guides his horse with his legs. He clearly knows how to ride, and his horse is extremely responsive. And he will occasionally huddle underneath his coat to read through the book, which you could see that he has all of these silk ribbons through it where he's marked it. And probably as we're riding along, heading up to Willow's Bluff, we're hearing the very end of, "And then they wandered all through the desert. They were subject to the sun and to the dryness, but they never lost their faith. And that's what makes me feel warm when I'm out in the cold like this. Don't you think that's a nice, warming story, sister?"
I will feel much warmer when we are inside and away from your ministrations to your horse, but thank you, Brother Abel.
It is a blessing for me to give to you.
Anyone looking can see that Sister Zora is trying so hard not to comment right now, but just locks it down, keeps on riding.
Oh, fantastic. David, can you tell us, we'll sort of paint the scene as a bit of a team here. So I'll actually begin with Willow Bluff is as you come over the top of this hill and you see it in front of you, it's a fairly small town. It's got probably 10 or 12 buildings that would feel at home in any spaghetti western, that sort of lean-to corrugated iron style, and one stone building that is very obviously a church to the King of Life. It sits on its own and is larger than the other buildings, and catches the morning sun through its broadest side with the largest window. And it's probably actually one of the few that have like a proper glass window on it. There are farmlands around, growing mostly like wheats and corns. And you can see the people from here. Too difficult to distinguish them at this point, but you can see movement through the town of the lively people. David, can you tell us what Brother Lemuel sees in this town that shows him it is a town of the faithful and a town to be prized?
Well, I mean, I think the way that they take care of the church, and you can tell that there's new work done on it, and even though the snow, the elements, beat hard against the buildings, and there needs to be constant repairs, and you can see from the church, that they've done the upkeep that they need to keep it, solid through the winter.
That's excellent. And what does Brother Abel see that shows him that these people are true and have the faith in their hearts?
As we're riding up, looking across their fields and looking at the orderly way that they've kept all of this town looking, I can also see that the people themselves, having seen us coming, are coming out to meet us. They recognize, and they are hopefully, it looks like they're glad to have us come.
Oh, that's excellent. And Ryan, what does Sister Zipporah see that shows you that this town is hiding darkness. What is it that sets those hairs standing up on the back of your neck?
Though the people come out to meet us, there's a bit of hesitation and tightness around their eyes when they look at us that just Brother Abel may not notice, but it's very familiar to me.
Yeah, if anyone was gonna read it, it would be you. I think the first person that approaches you is this young girl, and she runs up. She's wearing just like a very drab brown dress, as you'd expect her to, and she charges up to you, and like runs probably like under the feet of the horse a little bit, and then she stops and looks at like the group, and she sees this book hanging off the side of Sister Zipporah's saddle, like in its casing, and she sees it like it's just not. It's certainly compared to the others, it's just not as impressive. And she like looks up at you and she says, "Oh, Mr. Dog, Brother Dog, what's wrong with your book?" Oh, sorry, correction. Sister Dog. Mrs. Dog, Sister Dog. Oh, I want it to be a dog just like you. What's wrong with your book?
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just old. It's seen a lot of use. Books should eventually look like this.
And she says, "Well, my book won't, because I even though I read it all the time, I keep it in really good condition." And then like a man comes up, and he's wrapped tight against the cold. Probably looks like he's suffering from it. He's an older guy, and he scoops her up. And when I say older guy, I'm talking like 35-ish. He scoops her up and kind of holds her in his arms. He says, "Sister Saphira, it's too cold out here for this for you. And don't go hassling the dogs. They're good people and they carry big guns." And he looks at the three of you and he says, "Well, you've been riding a while in this cold. Can I invite you into our meeting hall? I think we'll have a bit of a chat in there, and I can get you some warm drinks."
Certainly, it has been somewhat cold. Thank you for your welcome.
It's not a worry for me. And he introduced himself. I'm Brother Archibald, by the way, and it's not the first time I've seen dogs in this here town, but it's been a while.
It is always good for a town to be visited. I know that sometimes it seems that you have been forsaken, but know that we are all here. We are all one.
He like takes a couple of steps towards the town, leading the three of you, and he sets his daughter down. He like sends her off. Another man's off to the side. He says, "Go see Brother Jacob," and she runs off to him, and he moves to the town. He doesn't need to like call out to everyone. Like it's someone has told them all the dogs are coming. They've seen you from the bluff. They're impressed, and he sort of stands by the door of this large meeting hall, and he helps you to hitch your horses outside, and he as he enters you through the door, they hand each of you a like a glass or a small ceramic mug of hot water with like a slice of lemon floating in it, which in a town like this is probably the closest you're going to get to like coffee or hot chocolate coming in from the cold. And the inside of this town, let's talk about this. So I would like to ask, let's give you a good one this time, Sister Zipporah. What is typical of the inside of this church that would look like every other meeting hall church of the faith?
Well, it has the typical places you'd expect, pews, places to be ministered to. There's clear signs of use. The wood's worn, like people touch it regularly, but also well maintained. There's nothing breaking down in here. There's no rot in the wood. Overall, it seems fairly normal to Zipporah in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. But for, I guess, Brother Abel, what is it that you see in this church that that is different but pleases you?
I see that they have up on at the pulpit where the stewards, where the prophets would speak. I see that they have several of the book out. And I can even see that these are really nicely made and illustrated. And seeing that clearly these are people who wish to study the word, and that can only be a good thing.
Excellent. And Brother Lemuel, how do you recognize the steward when you walk in? What is his like? What is he wearing or doing that makes him stand out so much from the others to you?
Well, I think he's wearing the kind of the standard vestments of his office, which comprises of I'm not sure what they're called, but the kind of the thing that drapes over the shoulders, and it's like not a scarf exactly, but it's it hangs down. It has cassock, yeah. So he has that, and also there's just kind of an air about him. You can tell that the steward is someone who's kind of he has that look about him of someone who ministers to the individuals in the community.
And the other thing he wears is an enormous smile, and he like spreads his arms open, making the tree of life with each of his hands, and then like holds them to his heart, and he has this enormous smile, and he says, "Well, I wasn't sure I'd see a dog in my time as steward. I'm very, very proud to host you here." He says, please come in. Do you find the water and lemon to your liking?"
Yes, steward. It's very good.
Oh, of course.
It warms us.
Sorry, I was so shocked I didn't introduce myself. I'm Steward Levi. I'm very, and I heard that some of you were coming. And I don't think he would have like your names, but he knew the dogs were coming, and he was very excited about it. And he actually, I think, Sister Zipporah is like a little bit tripped up by you, and he says, "Oh, this is the first woman I've met to be a dog. Do I greet you differently?"
No need to worry about that. Just as Sister Zipporah will do.
Well,
and thank you for the water and lemon. It's much appreciated.
Well, I couldn't have dogs freezing in my town. I'd never hear the end of it. The King of Life himself would have me strung up for that. Please come in. I'd love to. He's like very obviously flustered, and he says, I'd love to introduce you to my wife. But first, would you like to meet her, or should we do a service first, or what would you like?
It is always good to end a journey with the word.
Certainly. I've heard that dogs are excellent problem solvers, and it appears yet again he has brought us the truth. And he, as he steps up onto behind the pulpit, I don't even think it's a stage. Like, it's just the pulpit's there. It's at the same level. He doesn't even he just changes, and he just finds comfort in that space. And he breathes deep, and he says, "Please, dogs, take a seat. Brothers and sisters all, please be seated." And the town of probably 25 odd, 30 odd people all take seats at the same time. And He says, "It is an absolute joy to have found dogs amongst us. I think that we can all be very proud of ourselves for seeing this day. And they will have brought us mail and packages and goodness, and they will have brought us stories from outside, and they will have brought us news of your loved ones elsewhere. But I think that first we should begin with prayer." And he looks down. I think he opens one of the books and he takes like a slip of paper that was holding a page out. And he says, "No, we won't." He says, "Sister Constance, you were next on the list, but we won't. I'm not sure if we'll follow the list today. Well, with dogs being here, it feels like a special occasion." And there's a lady at the back, an older lady. She sits with her husband and someone, presumably her daughter. And she just like silently like shakes her head and like wide-eyed, and, like grits her teeth and stares down the steward, and he's just like, no, we won't. And the steward says, "You're right. It is a special occasion. We should have someone special." And I'm just going to keep going through this. If you guys want to interrupt, like, go ahead. You are dogs. You hold authority to like interrupt at any time. I extend that to you as players. And he says, "Well, Brother Archibald, do you think that Sister Saphira would like to show the dogs what she's capable of?" And like the old guy that you saw outside the town has this big smile of pride, and he has 4 children sitting next to him, 4 quite young children, and they sit between him and another man. And the girl like looks to her right to the man sitting next to her, and she puts her hand out and he grips it and holds onto it, and he says, "You'll be fine. Just do your best." She's like very obviously nervous, and she stands up, and she walks past Brother Archibald, and she like gives him a big hug before she goes up. And she like walks up to the pulpit, and she can't see over it. So the steward does 2 things. Steward Levi does 2 things. First, he removes his vestments, revealing the brown shirt and trousers underneath, and he drapes them around this little girl, this like 9-year-old girl, so that it like falls and flows to the floor. And he picks her up and holds her over his shoulder as she holds the pulpit. And he goes to like open the book for her, and she pushes it down with one of her little hands, and she looks out over the crowd and she says, "I will make some of you as sagebush and some as marigold. I will make you as the desert sand." Theodosia, 1105. Now, what can we understand from this passage? Perhaps that the Lord will make us a tangle, a community in with each other, not single trees to be growing alone. He will make us as the sand, thousands of grains, worthless alone, but powerful together. The King of Life is a very special man, and he finds us to be very special people. And she like turns her head to the priest, to the steward, and she nods, and he lets her down, and he takes the cloak off her back and puts it back on.
Is this very odd? Because it feels very odd.
Go with that instinct.
I'm guessing first off that women don't generally get up there at all, do they?
Normally it's no one but a steward, but certainly it would not be a 9-year-old female child.
Or for that matter, an old lady.
Correct.
Or an old lady who's unhappy not to be going up there.
Correct.
So I will kind of cut my eyes over at my 2 companions. In probably what you come to recognize as my, well, actually, look. But I'm gonna, let this little service continue and maybe talk with my fellows more privately, unless one of y'all hops up and says, blasphemy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, we've certainly worked with each other before, right, Sid? So I mean, this is not our first town, so I suspect we kind of have a bit of a relationship. So I think we kind of know how each other likes to work. I think because of my history, I kind of want to give people a fair, like, I don't want to jump to conclusions, like people kind of jump to conclusions about my father, which may or may not have been true, probably true, but I think my MO is going to be to kind of let's not react like first thing. Let's suss out what's going on. So I think that'll be my inclination is, yeah, this is weird, but it's like, let's get the service over. Let's talk to the steward. Let's find out like just what on earth's going on here.
This is weird, but rather than giving them a fair shake, I'm interested in giving them enough rope to hang themselves with. I assume this is not the root of what's going on here, and we need to find that and cut it out.
I agree. All right.
Okay. So we'll let the service progress then, and it progresses kind of in this way with I think that's probably the majority of like what we'll see on the service. But Stuart Levi does like speak to some small town business, and he doesn't want to linger on it too much with you there. But there is a point where he gives you the opportunity to. Would you like? He says, "Dogs, I believe you've brought mail and packages for the people of this town. Would you like to distribute it here while everyone's together, or in your own time?"
I think we'll do that in our own time. The mail will keep for a few hours while we, check things out.
This is I think that the people of the town will find themselves more than willing to receive you at any time that is convenient to you. However, speaking of convenience, we mustn't linger here in slothfulness. There is work to be done. And he kind of says, like, "Brother Jacob, you've got your crops to tend to," and he is indicating to the guy that the Sister Saphira held the hand of was sitting next to her, and says, "Brother Jacob, you got your crops to tend to," and he says, "They're doing pretty well on their own, Stuart." He says, "I don't think there'll be too much trouble through this winter," and there's like a scoff from someone behind him that's quickly silenced. Probably a little bit hard to figure out who exactly it came from, and. The Stuart Levi says, and with that, I spread you out as his branches to continue your service to him and to each other. Amen. And he dismisses the community out into the church, out into the town.
So, go ahead, Tyler.
I was going to say that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You go.
David, go.
Okay. So I was going to ask the steward, so Steward Levi, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what's going on in the community here. What are some of the things you'd like us to look at and help out?
Fantastic. Now, the other two of you, would either of you like to be involved in the discussion with the steward, or is there someone else you're going to try and catch and have a conversation with? I figure if you can figure out where you're going to be.
I want to stay here and listen to this steward because I might have a question or two for him as well.
Sure.
I'm not going to go off on my own just yet. I'll also listen.
Don't split the party? All right. So Steward Levi says, I guess the only thing I really need your help with is, he says, Sister Saphira, and he probably turns to you, Sister Zipporah, and says, I think that it's evidenced in front of us that women make excellent dogs, but they need proper coaching, and I'm wondering, how do I, as a steward, how do I get this young girl to be a dog when the work of a dog is terrible stuff? It's guns and fighting, and there's sin involved. How do I teach a 9-year-old girl about the evils of the world? Can you do it for me?
I suppose I could. You'd be surprised how much 9-year-old girls observe about the world.
Oh, I have no doubt. I just want the best for her.
Well, that's all anyone wants, I suppose.
And so, and I'll ask him. And so, are you blood relations to Saphira, or what is your relationship with her?
I am her steward. I am only her steward. I would also consider myself her friend, but I am her brother in faith, but not through blood. No.
And brother Jacob and brother Archibald. Brother Archibald is her father, and what is brother Jacob to her?
Brother Jacob is helping brother Archibald out. We lost his wife, Sister Verity, quite recently, and it's with his 4 children, his barrel making, and his own faith. It was a little bit much for an older man in the winter. So brother Jacob's been helping him out.
Are they blood relations?
No.
That is a great charity, then, that Brother Jacob is doing to... Does he not have his own wife and children to look out for?
No, brother Jacob, he is late in marrying, I will agree. And there was a woman who, Sister Esther, you may have seen her, the like strawberry blonde. He has been courting her. He's been a little bit busy lately to conclude that and to begin wedding her, but
with his crops,
and with brother Archibald's family, and he's taken on a lot of charity. He's a very dutiful man, and he has taken on this duty with aplomb.
I have to say that it is rather unusual. I've not seen a service before where a child spoke to her elders in particular.
Did we lose you, Tyler?
No, I don't think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, did I lose? No.
I'm
here.
I
think I froze. I think.
Okay, yeah, I can still hear Tyler. So
yeah, I could hear him too.
Great, that's me. So yes, he says. Well, Sister Saphira is no simple child. She speaks with great heart and great recall of the word. The King of Life has given her quite the gift, and I wanted to impress you with that.
It made quite an impression. I must say she is indeed a stellar young girl. Quite forthcoming. When we rode up, she came straight to us.
Sister Saphira has taken the tenements that we are all of one family incredibly literally. She casts her heart very wide.
I see. I'll just sort of wander off, looking around to leave the other two to speak to him if they have more.
Is there more? I think his question to you at this point would be like, now I will be honest, this is my first visit from dogs as a steward, but would you prefer to stay with me? My house has room. Otherwise, there's the church, although it may be a bit cold in the stone.
Where would it be normal for dogs to stay?
Kind of wherever you want. You're a dog. You tell me. Like you can sleep outside in a tent. You can sleep with the faithful. Like it's your call.
I would be happy to stay with you.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. There's like a little bit of like pride that wells up, and he says, "I must." He says, "I must tell Sister Salome, my wife. She'll be so excited." And in fact, he probably flusters a little bit too much, and he's like, "I must tell Sally, Sister Salome. She's my wife. And that's not abnormal for like husbands and wives to have affectionate names for each other. But in polite company, it would always be brother and sister." He says, I'll see to that right away. I hope you're able to see yourself around the town. Is there anything you need from me before I depart?"
I'm good.
We'll take a moment, I suppose, to pray here quietly while you prepare your home, and then of course we have so much that I'm sure the town is looking forward to receiving. Mail is often a scarce commodity, and I'll wait for him to leave.
He's gone.
There's something very strange about this. I think, Lemuel, have you ever heard of a town, not only a woman, but a child preaching? And did you see that, I'm sure, fine, good woman, but there was anger when she was told she would not speak before the congregation?
I think Stuart Levi may have been maybe being a bit lax with the king's word, and we may have to have a word with him. But we should see what else is going on here, because make sure that this is all there is.
Yes. Well, should we go and visit and deliver mail, or should we stay together or go separate? You could probably see a little bit in his eyes of he's used to being with one of you. Not being the bravest, well, the toughest sort. He's fairly brave, but not the toughest sort.
Let's stay closer together for now, unless Brother Lemuel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if we need to split up at some point, we can. But at the moment, we should just go kind of deliver the mail, talk to people, see what's going on.
Okay. To whom are you interested in heading? Thank you. And please excuse my worldliness.
So to go meta for a minute, I've been kind of trying to keep I've been trying to learn how to use the Google Sheet or the Google Drawing and keep things up to date. Can you guys take a quick peek and just make sure that I've updated it properly? That I got all the names correct and the relationships correct.
Oh, you are doing the king's work there.
It looked very useful, so I've been consulting it regularly.
The only error I see is Brother Jacob was courting Sister Esther. Sister Verity is dead and was also married.
Sure enough.
There is a whole lot of sin going on in him courting a dead married woman. But that's it.
You got it. Okay.
Zombie.
All right, there we go. Well, why don't we start with Brother Jacob? I assume there's probably mail for just about anybody we want to talk to, right?
Yeah, so
absolutely. We will. I mean, not that we need an excuse because we're dogs, but the mail makes a nice entry point. So let's go talk to Brother Jacob.
Not that we need an excuse should be what this game is called.
Especially since, sister, you have sort of suggested you are going to teach this child? You must see a lot in her.
She reminds me of someone. Let's continue on.
Oh boy, this is great. I'm interested. Let's start with Brother Abel. Let's start with you. What ritual do you perform? Because I imagine that you're not just going to walk out of a church to the King of Life. What rituals do you perform while you're in here?
I imagine the faith is not, it doesn't lean towards Catholic with so much like liturgy, so much static sort of ritual, so much as quiet contemplation sorts. But, true to my word, because I wouldn't wish to deceive the steward, I will take a moment to take out my book, and you could see me run my fingers just down, the book's closed, down the pages until one seems to attract my attention. And I open the book and begin quietly praying, though I will say one passage out loud. And from a rotted bush fell a rotted fruit and poisoned all those that would eat it.
Oh, shit. You guys are so good at this game. Brother Jacob can be found in his field tending to his crops. And I want to point out the stark contrast that you see. The crops overlay, the corns and the wheat overlay. And Brother Jacob kind of works through the field of corn on his own. And another man who you saw in the church, but we haven't identified yet, is working through the wheat. And the corn is like growing, even with the dusting of snow that it has, it is green and alive and grows with the strength of the King of Life himself. The wheat is browned and struggling against the weather. And some of the kids that you saw sitting between Brother Jacob and Archibald will run through the things with him, and like he will lean on like his tools and watch them run past with affection, and then he picks up the tools and works again. And as one runs around him, he turns around and he sees the dogs approaching, and he like grows this big smile on his face, and he says, "Dogs, it's an honor, but I must ask, are you here to see me, or are you here to see young Sister Saphira?"
This is Brother Jacob, right? Not the man that's working for him. Is that right?
This is Brother Jacob, who is not the father of the children. He is the man who is performing the charity, as Tyler put it.
Yeah. Brother Jacob, we're here to see you. As dogs, we typically deal with the adults, and only with the children, if we're delivering instruction or, baptizing them. I guess we do. Do we do that?
Yeah, sure.
But I think when we're there on business, I'll indicate to him, we're there on business, and we're not really there to deal with the children at this point.
And he takes the lead from your attitude, and his mouth tightens a little bit, and he says, it's a dangerous thing when dogs are out on business. It's and I think he he says, it's a dangerous thing when dogs are out on business. He says, especially the ones that can't keep themselves straight. And you can see like the look of recognition in his eyes that he knows that coat.
And I'll say, be that as it may, Brother Jacob, but we have some mail for you here today. And we'll give him his mail, and then I'll say, your crops certainly look like they're growing well here.
Healthy and blessed. I've given myself in service to another, and the King of Life has seen fit to reward me. It's as the book says. And he's getting like a little bit defensive. I think that like he senses that you're here for something bigger, and he's not trying to hide something from you. Not at this point, at least. He's just trying to like he's just trying to suss you out.
I would guess that Brother Archibald would be in the house. We, of course, have packages for him.
He says, you're welcome to leave them with me. I'll take them into him, or you can take them in yourself. Far be it from me to tell a dog what to do.
Yes, I think we probably should take those in and to him personally. I have to admit that I am truly overwhelmed with the great generosity you've shown to this man. It is a blessing that you give him to care so deeply for his land, his children, his own well-being.
He says, well, I was raised right, and as far as shit, actually, he doesn't say that. He would definitely not say. He goes, yeah, huh? Can't. Saphira, what's that Ishmael 12:15? And she yells back, 12:17. For 'tis his will before each and all that we do the greatest good with those with whom we share covenant. And
I'm mouthing along with her as she's saying it.
Yeah.
And impressed that she says it perfectly.
Beautiful. And he says, that's it. He's a man of my town and a man of my faith. I'd do anything for him.
I look to my other two friends, and I'm probably going to turn and start walking towards the house.
Yep. Let's head on in to talk to Archibald.
I follow right along, still observing.
Yeah. The house itself is large and communal, and while it's a large house, it probably only has like 2 or 3 rooms to it. Especially on this like ground floor, and the top floors there's probably more, but on the ground floor you'll see, as you walk in through the back, like from where the crops are, you'll come across the kitchen first, and the kitchen shares a space with this giant dining table. Now I want to talk to Brother Lemuel. What is it about this dining setup that reminds you of where you grew up?
I think it's the fact that at the head of the table, where the father sits, is a very ornate chair. Perhaps like leather and possibly padded, as well. While the other chairs are very plain and straight backed and probably not particularly comfortable.
Okay, that's perfect. That's so perfect. Yeah. I love it so much. And the table itself is just like this simple hardwood table that has seen years of use. It was probably put in this house when it was built generations ago, and then just like has never moved. And in the kitchen, standing over like this this large pot with his sleeves rolled up, is Brother Archibald, and that look that he had of like being aged in the cold has kind of gone inside this house, where it's a little bit warmer, where the fire is burning in the kitchen and heating water that he's then using to scrub away at pots and things like that.
So I would say, Brother Archibald, we heard that your wife, Sister Verity, passed not long ago. How long has it been?
He like wipes away at his head and leaves like a trail of water on there that sort of falls down, and he almost takes like pleasure in that warmth. And he rolls his sleeves back up so as not to be too modest in front of the dogs. And he says, "Oh, it's been maybe a couple of months, just when it started getting cold." I still think
So-
about it.
And what took her, if I may ask?
Says I think it was the brain fever. We couldn't get her to a doctor. We don't have a doctor in this town, but brain fever was the best guess we had. Which, for anyone playing along at home, is probably meningitis.
It is very sad for you to have lost your wife, the mother of such a large, happy family. You have my greatest sympathies.
He says it'd be a lot harder if I didn't have the help I had. I appreciate your sympathies, dog, but we're getting by okay. Well, most of the kids are too young to really understand it, and that's been a blessing. And the king has blessed Sister Saphira, the eldest, with some good resilience.
She seems a remarkable child.
She'll be a dog one day. Mark my words on that.
The king works in many, many ways.
And there's probably like a little flutter of pride that he shows. Like it's a very human emotion. It's not something you can stamp out of people, and he is proud that he gets this wonderful daughter to show off to you.
Did you teach her to read?
No, the Verity, Sister Verity taught her to read, but she just took off on her own, just like a couple of weeks ago. Just she could read and write some, as we all could, but man, she really got it. About a month ago, we were just sitting around and we did grace at supper, and I said a couple of the words wrong, and she just caught me on it. Just could tell me that wasn't what was in the book, and I was, well, look, I'll admit it to you, dogs. I had some pride in me, and I stood up to discipline my child, and I stood up to say to her, Sister Saphira, when I say the word, I know the word, but we got the book out, and I was wrong.
Suffer the little children.
I do. 4 of them.
Well, Brother Archibald, I know this is soon, but the king says we have to get on with our life, and we have to move past the troubles that we have. Have you been thinking of of taking another wife to become a mother to your children?
He says, "No, I haven't thought about taking anyone to replace her." And there's something in his voice. Actually, I'm interested in asking you. We'll go for Brother Abel this time. what is it in his voice that tells you he's lying to you?
He looks out the window towards the field.
Yep. Yeah, just breaks that eye contact. No, I haven't thought of anyone to replace her.
You're still young. You should find a mother for your children. And, of course, you can't be happy doing women's work while others tend your farm.
Oh, man. He says, women's work. He says, are you married yourself, dog?
It's not yet my time. My duties hold me until I return home.
This is when you're married, when you share the household, the idea of women's work and men's work becomes a fuzzier grey area. Says the priority for us and for the King of Life is that we create a happy home, and if that means that I got to roll up my sleeves and scrub some pots, well then, in his service, may I do it.
Mm. There are shadows that lurk in the gray areas, Brother Archibald.
Yes, sir. That's why we have dogs to keep them out.
Very true.
Is this have you passed any of the mail on to Sister Constance yet?
Your farm was the first since we arrived.
Just be careful when you talk to her dogs. She is those shadows in the grey area. She's a fierce woman, and she's got a lot of anger boiling in her, and a lot of, and he like leans in quietly, and he's like, I think there's some jealousy, and well, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that she might be carrying a bit too much pride. Then probably like a kid runs in, and he like leans back up and breaks that moment of like confidence with you. And just be careful, dogs. You don't want to listen to the whispers of snakes these days.
So I will say I'll thank him for the advice, and then look and see if anybody else, if Abel or Zipporah seem like they're ready to move on, or if they have more questions.
I kind of have a thing for Zipporah. If you don't have anything for me,
I don't have any clear questions.
Beautiful. No. Sister Saphira charges up to you and like wraps her arms around one of your legs and tugs on your coat. This is the perfect time. Sister Zipporah, can you describe your coat to us, please?
Oh man, they're supposed to be like patchwork, aren't they?
Especially yours, because yours is so different. Mm-hmm. Whatever yours is what it is. It's normally patchwork and like has like symbolism in each of the patches and stuff, but man, I loved the buffalo like leathered one that we had before. So like whatever you got.
Okay. Well, mine is a patchwork, and it's not all of the same fabrics even. The colors are pretty wild. It looks like it was sort of a scrap quilt look. Like a lot of different people had hands in it, and they didn't really talk to each other while they were doing it.
I love that. I love that so much. Can you tell me what's like the what's the one like on your waist? What would that patch look like? What would it be made of?
That one is surprisingly good, sturdy wool. It's kind of a not very exciting is the patches go, it's just kind of gray, but it has a very nice embroidered tree of life on it.
Oh, that's
Someone obviously put a lot of effort into.
Oh my god, that's so good. That's so good. And Saphira like wraps her arms around you, and she puts her head up against you, and like right where that tree of life is, and she looks at it, and she looks up at you, and she points to it, and she says, "I've heard that that your family makes your coat. Did your family sew this tree of life for you, dog?"
I just try to peel her off and say that, no, they didn't, but we should be getting on.
And she like looks a little bit upset, and she's like, but Stuart Levi said that you were gonna teach me how to be a dog. She said you were gonna teach me to do some dog things. And she's like, can I? And she like reaches for the barrel of your gun, and she's like, do I get to shoot the gun?
As she starts to reach for it, just smack her hand away with, that is not for children and not for anyone not used to it. Never reach for someone's gun.
Okay, I'll remember that one.
Tells us that patience is a virtue.
Yeah. She says, the faithful act not out of haste, but out of patience for everlasting glory. I know that one. It's Elijah 22:03. And she says, and I'll remember the gun thing too. I'm real good at remembering. I'm real good, dog. I'm gonna be a real good student. And she's like, so when are you gonna teach me?
Zipporah just casts a kind of helpless look to Abel because she is totally overwhelmed. This kid is a mile a minute. What is going on? She's clearly not used to small children.
You could see that Abel kind of has this little, barely keeping it from laughing at this going on. And the book says that what we give to others is a blessing to ourselves. And I'm sure you wish to be blessed with the gift of your knowledge, Zipporah, my dear sister.
So excited.
But we probably should be about our work, child, before Zipporah can teach you. A dog must know their duties.
I love how Abel is hanging me out to dry on this one. Yes. Unfortunately, we do have other duties and can't do this. And besides, the training of a dog is very long and involved and not something you can impart quickly in a kitchen like this.
Okay. But you said you were going to do it, and so I trust you because you and I, we share covenant, and for 'tis his will before each and all that we do the greatest good with those with whom we share covenant. And I trust you. And she like traces around the tree of life on your waist above her head.
There's this brief moment of kind of puzzled panic. Like, I didn't actually promise anything, did I? But clearly this is not an argument Zipporah is going to win. So just, yeah, okay. Let's try to keep the kid away from my coat as we maybe leave.
All right. Now I want to... Yes, thank you, Tyler. I was going to say I want to talk about that. I want to quickly take a break. Take a break until the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. Does that work for everyone? Or whatever your appropriate top of the hour is. All right, cool.
Sounds good.
Then. Are you enjoying yourself, David?
Oh yes, definitely. Sorry, I thought my mic was off. Yeah, no, I figured I'd take the break to try to make some fixes to the document here. Yeah, no, this is an interesting town. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. Although I'm going to propose, rather than going to see Sister Constance right away, I want to go talk to Sister Esther and see how her courting with Brother Jacob is going. I suspect not well, but we shall see what she says.
Absolutely, I would love to hear it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it and that you're finding the town interesting. Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm guessing so, but homosexuality would be a sin, right?
It would certainly be a sin. It's because you're not married and you're not ordained in heaven, and it would be a horrible sin.
Of course, we're also seeing women preaching and acting strangely, which, in the eyes of the king, all sins weigh equally.
Yeah. I mean, I suspect we're seeing a lot of kind of like gender roles flipping here, right? We have women, and children, giving the word of the king, and we have Brother Jacob basically taking over the male duties of Brother Archibald's household while he's kind of effectively become the wife. I mean, even if there's no homosexuality here, there's definitely some gender issues.
And it's interesting that, it would seem they certainly did not make that open to us, but they did not mind the blasphemy of having a child in the pulpit preaching before adults. That didn't even, they knew our reputation, and that didn't seem to even come up on their radar as a thing that we might judge them harshly for.
More than that, it seemed proud of it, like this was going to be their selling point.
Right.
Which is a really weird one to put forward. Even if it is, look at this kid, you could have her as a dog. You won't really lead with that.
But yeah, as we head out and get away from them a bit, I will look over at you, Sephora. There is something remarkable about that child. She has not missed a word, sister. Not one.
And if any would know, it would be you. But yes, there's something remarkable. When I say remarkable, it doesn't necessarily sound like a compliment.
So I was going to propose that we actually go talk to Sister Esther next. I'm sure we have mail for her.
I follow your lead, Brother Lemuel. And I have a feeling that I probably do that a lot. I run my mouth, but in the big scope of things, I imagine you're a little older than me, and I probably have a lot of respect for you. So I probably follow your lead and then just say snarky asshole things kind of to the side.
Not to throw fuel on the fire, but you respect Brother Lemuel even knowing his history?
Yeah, I would almost say for certain that sort of, along with my kind of almost rebellious questioning, the book says a man is judged by his faith, and I've never been a fan of the sins of the father visited upon the son. That always seemed to be me to have probably been a mistranslation.
But you're all about rotten fruit falling from rotten trees.
Oh yeah, well, see, that's more of a spiritual aspect there.
Yeah, let's not get label writing an exegesis on this, but
yeah. Perfect.
And I do like that he's also in the I respect you and know you know your stuff, but man, you can be annoying towards them.
Oh, that's so good. who would you speak to about Sister Esther? Would you ask the brothers before you left that homestead, Brother Archibald's homestead, where Sister Esther was, or would you like just flag someone down and be like, "Yo, where's his Sister E?"
I don't see any reason why we should hide what we're doing. I think we should just ask brother. We should just tell Brother Archibald we're gonna go talk to Sister Esther. Delivers. We have mail for Sister Esther.
Yeah, cool.
Would like to deliver it.
Yep. He like tells you where she is. I think as he's telling you, he's that table that sits at like the head of that chair. Sorry, that sits at the head of the table. He's like just rearranging the table to set for a meal, and like he just pulls that into like the middle of the table and like evenly distributes the chairs all around the table. And as he's doing that, he says, "Sister Esther, you'll find her, down the way," and he points to the house. And he just doesn't cloak the not disgust, but he doesn't cloak the dislike that he has for her. That he's not a fan of her. But yeah, so Sister Esther's homestead will be the same on the outside as most of the others. The uniformity is not just a nice GM narration technique; it's also part of that faith. You don't want to be prideful in your homestead and how you present it, but behind it, the crops behind it are like that same sort of withering brownness that we saw in the wheat earlier. And as you knock on the door, Sister Esther opens the door. Now, Sister Zapira, violence. Let's talk about violence and your experience with violence. What is it about Sister Esther that immediately tells you that she is a victim of violence?
There's a way that it's hard to describe, but sort of immediately sizing up where we are and where she is in relation to exits. And she seems to be taking stock of us and our stance in a way that I haven't noticed other people doing in town necessarily.
And that like inherent fear in the eyes, you probably catch like the flash of the bruise on her wrist, underneath her long sleeves, and she says, "Oh, good morning, dogs. It's a pleasure to see. Oh, I guess good afternoon, dogs. It's a pleasure to see you here. Did you come to deliver mail upon my mother and father? I can gather them if you'd like." And she like shakes up. "I'm sorry, I haven't dealt with dogs before. I'm not quite sure what my protocol is. Please let me be polite. Would you like to come in and sit down?"
Thank you for your hospitality, sister. We would love to.
Did I hear something from you at the same time, Zapira?
I was saying yes, but gave way to Lemuel because I'm still sizing her up.
Okay, cool. She brings you in and sits you down in like a living room, in a sitting room, and it's quite bare. There's chairs that you sit on, but they're plain wooden chairs, not entirely comfortable. But you wouldn't want comfort, would you, dogs? And there's a fire burning in the corner, which or in the side, which brings warmth into this area of the room. And she like sets two chairs across from you, where her parents would be to sit. And she says, I'll be right back. I'll just go gather them." And she heads upstairs. You hear her feet like echoing on the wooden steps and then creaking on the floorboards above you. There's voices, and then they come down. And coming down are two people. One is what's his name? A man who introduced himself as Brother Barnabas, and he's a tall and bearded man. probably in the range of like 6'2"-ish, quite lanky, Brother Barnabas. And he introduced you to himself, and then introduced you to his wife, Sister Constance, who is that same woman with the gritted teeth and the wide eyes from the church. And she is looking at you with like exhaustion. Like, you're finally here. Like, what else were you doing in this town that was more important than coming to see us? And they sit down in the chairs opposite you, and Sister Esther like stands and nods and excuses herself to depart to the kitchen.
You have a lovely daughter and a lovely home.
He says, Brother Barnabas says, oh, thank you, Dog. She is a wonderful daughter, and I'm glad that you've come to see that. I wish that more young men around your age had come to see how lovely she is. He says,
I had heard she was being courted by Brother Jacob.
And Sister Constance goes to say something, and he like silences her and just like places a hand on her knee.
And does it look like there's restrained violence there, or is
oh yeah,
okay,
oh yeah, it looks like if he was in this room, she would have torn him apart in front of you.
Oh, so not like he's violent.
No, not restrained violence on the part of Brother Barnabas. Restrained violence, restraining his wife's violence.
Oh. Yes, was being courted by Brother Jacob, and he seems such a very capable young man.
And he says, yes, he is a capable man, and he has been courting our daughter, and we hope he will continue. And like, more to Sister Constance than to you, we know he will continue that soon. He's just a little bit tied up helping Brother Archibald through the winter.
I'll keep a close look at her when he says that.
And you can tell that like neither of them believe what he's saying.
And so I would say I'll actually just ask about that. I'll say, so what seems to have caused the hesitation on his part? Why is he not more, she's a beautiful young woman. Why is he not being more active?
He says he's simply busy. But what is it about that tells you he's lying to you?
I think in the faith, it's important to do charity, but it's pretty much his obligation to court a wife.
Yeah,
that's his priority zero, and he's not doing it. So either Barnabas is lying, or there's something wrong with Brother Jacob. There's something wrong here, one way or the other. Yeah, or both. Yeah. Why not and?
Why not end? Yep, that's spot on. Yeah, you can tell that he's lying to you, that he doesn't believe what he's saying, and he doesn't think that, and like he kind of doesn't care whether or not he's getting away with it to you.
Brother Barnabas, we of course have brought mail for you. I would love a tour of your farm to see how it runs, so that when I leave, I can tell others of things that may help the community. Your crops do not seem to be doing as well as some others.
Sister Constance stands, and the chair flies back like a foot or two behind her, and she says, apologies, I must excuse myself to the kitchen to prepare us something to drink. You'll need warm drinks if you're to walk the farm. And she like storms to the kitchen, and as soon as she gets in there, you hear cupboards opening and things like falling out of them, and Sister Esther like squeals, and there's just a ruckus from there, and noticing it but trying to talk over it and through it. Brother Barnabas has well, I'm afraid my crops won't teach you much to help communities, and like raise his voice a little bit more, but I'm happy to take you out there if you wish. Let's we'll go out the front door and walk around so we don't go through the kitchen.
And where is Esther physically? Is she kind of in the room here? Is she in with Constance, or is she somewhere else?
She's in the kitchen with Constance, with Sister Constance.
Is it horribly sexist of me to cut my eyes over towards you, Sister Zipporah, as we stand up to go to this field and kind of look back towards the kitchen? Is that the sort of casual sexism that you're used to? Like, God. A woman will listen to a woman better than they would a man?
The sort of casual sexism Zipporah was expecting, but was half expecting you to pitch in with a verse about should not the husband be as unto a steward to his family, and why is your house such a mess? But yes, as Constance reached her chair back, you can see Zipporah kind of readying, and there's a subtle as you give her.
It's casual sexism, but it's casual sexism you're on board for.
It's the sort of casual sexism that Zipporah is raised in and used to.
Wow. Oh boy. Okay.
And I'm just stuck trying to figure out which of these two conversations is going to be the most interesting.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we've got a decision to make at this point, because I am like super on edge here. This feels like a really great hang. It gives us 15 minutes to like do a wrap up and then come back in and do 3 hours next time. Does that sit well with everyone? Is everyone okay to like leave this hanging here for a week?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, fantastic. I love that. We will leave it hanging here with. Let's have a look at our drawing. Brother Jacob does work for Brother Archibald, who has a daughter and 3 other children. This Zipporah, deceased wife. The parents, victim of violence. Oh boy. And then Steward Levi off to the side. Yeah, this is quite the town at the moment. Before we kind of move out of this into like a debrief phase, I want to ask you all, what do you think is the root of this town's sin at the moment? What does... I guess I have 2 questions on that, which is, what do you think it is, and what does your character think it is? But I think that there's a bit of crossover there.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what I said a little while ago. I think it's also what my character thinks as well, is that there's men not behaving as men and women not behaving as women. I mean, now that we've seen Sister Constance, I suspect she's the one who is driving the family. I also suspect she's the one who's doing violence to Esther. So in a sense, I'll bet when we explore hers and Barnabas's relationship, we're going to find that she's the one who's in essence controlling the family, the steward of the family. And so I think we're seeing a lot of kind of like flipped gender roles. Now, as to what the root is exactly, I'm not sure.
Ryan?
I'm nodding along because, pretty much that. I mean, gender roles, and Jacob seems uninterested in women or forming his own family, and Constance is attempting to run, sounds like, the town to some extent. I'm not sure if there's a deeper root than that, and Zipporah is still reserving judgment because probably it's worse, but that's definitely a large part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point about Constance. You know, it's entirely possible she may be also trying to, in essence, be the steward to some degree, or kind of the, you know, the underground steward. You know, not officially, but kind of to try to be the power of the town. So,
I imagine Abel agrees with this, and you know, in his kind of analytical of the tenets, this overturning of what a person's duty is breaking covenant with the king. And somehow, you know, it's winter here, everyone's crops are down. I think probably Abel believes that somehow in what's going on with Archibald and Jacob, they've let a demon come in. That this good fortune is a product of demonic influence.
Abel would be able to recognize it, I'm sure. So, I mean, you know, with your familiarity with the scriptures,
the book is it is truth.
Far out. I love that so much. Now, I'm going to stop the broadcast here. We'll move into a debrief phase and all that sort of stuff. But for anyone for the 2 Gauntlet people that are watching this later, part 2 will be available there.